Hello, I'm Forrest Shaw, and I've got a problem. Got a big problem. Gambling, baby. That's one of many. One of many problems, but that is the pressing problem that led me to make this podcast. And here we are now with its own YouTube page, its very own dedicated YouTube page. I've got a problem podcast. And you know what? I think at the time of recording, there's 44 subscribers, which is a bigger number than what I was getting people watching on YouTube. The vast majority, just exponentially more people listen to this, which I get. That's how I absorb podcasts for the most part. But I had a few people watching on YouTube, listening on YouTube, and then I got some comments saying it was hard to find. And then it was on my comedy page, and it was getting kind of just cluttered. And then my comedy page kind of started suffering. Not that it was crushing it, but I made its own page. You want to find any of the videos on my comedy page, everything's on I've Got a Problem podcast. You can search for that. I put keywords in there. It should be easy to find now. And what I'm going to do is slowly release the old episodes on there. I think right now episode 24, 23, and 22 is David Stebbins, Jamie Wolfe, and Jonathan D. Cohen, the author. And I think every week on Tuesday, I release a new episode. And then on Friday, I think one of the backlogs will come out. And that way you'll be able to see him again or see him for the first time. If you are a new subscriber to the podcast, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. If you are listening to the podcast, I'm sure there's a reason for you to be here. And I'm happy that you're here. And I hope this is helping, or I hope it passes the time or helps you deal with whatever you're dealing with, or whatever person you're dealing with, or whatever's going on. But thank you for being here. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you are listening, you haven't subscribed, subscribe on YouTube or Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to the podcast. And please rate and comment. Let me know what you think. Doing a good job, bad job, I don't care. I can take it. If you want to put comments underneath the video, I usually look at them and respond to them. I'm pretty good about that. I have a phone too, if you feel like calling in. For anybody new, I don't use your name unless you tell me you want me to, but I don't. Got to get me old reading glasses on. 305-563-7264. That is +1 country code, USA. 305-563-7264 or 305-JOE-RANG. That is the phone number. Call in, and if you have a question, I'll answer it. If you have a comment, if you want to just chat, I won't be picking up the phone, but I will call you if you want me to on my own phone. I talked to some people through Instagram. They have like a phone function on there, and the messenger and the direct messenger in Instagram or in Facebook. I think I've talked to some people. I'm down. Reach out. Let me know how I can help. If I can help, if I'm available, I will be there for you. And if you want to donate to the podcast to help it keep running, on my website, forrestshaw.net, there on the podcast page, there's a donate button. You do not have to. I'll just tell everybody now, if you don't already know, I won't ever sell ads for this podcast. How exciting is that? Fucking hate ads on podcasts. Those are just fast forwarding through them anyways, but I'm not doing that. So if you are so inclined and you are financially able to, please send a couple bucks my way. That's fine. But if you don't, I'm still friends. We're still friends. I still love you. And I think, forrestshaw.net. If you're on my website and you want to see me perform live, come on out. I will be in Florida this week. Tonight, I will be in Fort Lauderdale at the Shamrock Comedy Club. Never been there before. It's a really good club. So I'm excited to do that. I'm there with Lisa Correo and David Stebbins, my guest from episode 23. I'm just guessing. I think it's 23. He will be doing a set there as well. So if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area, it's not too late. Well, it might be too late if you're listening to this on Wednesday or Thursday or after 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then tomorrow night, I will be at the Orlando Funny Bone, one night only. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm at Side Splitters in Tampa. I'm at the OG Club, 8 o'clock Thursday, and then late ass shows Friday and Saturday, I think 10 and 10:30. It's all on my website. So I'm in Florida this week. Come check me out. I'll be back in Florida in November, December. And where am I after that? I don't know. Oh, I'm going to Las Vegas. I'm going to be at the Comedy Cellar September 14th or 15th through the 20th, whatever that Monday through Sunday works out to. It's on my website. So if you're in Las Vegas, 2 shows a night, come out. And then the week after that, I'm in Boise, Idaho for the first time ever. It's the Lounge at the End of the Universe Club. 2 nights only. I believe it's 1 show each night. That club is dope. I went and visited it when I was opening for Jim Jeffries in Boise. And it's the people running it are awesome. And so if you're anywhere near the Boise area, please come out and support me and support that club. And then after that, long road trip in October, I'm going to be in Plano, Texas, Austin, Texas, LaGrange, Texas, Bastrop, Texas. I think there's some dates in Houston. It's all on my website. Go check it out. So I'm going to be in Texas for about 10 days, visiting my aunt, doing shows. Me and Arnie are on a road trip for 2.5 months. And then I will be in Florida doing gigs in Key West and Sarasota and Boca Raton and Miami and Fort Pierce. And I'm forgetting clubs, I'm sure. Oh, Winter Haven, Isle Morada, I think Cocoa Beach, maybe. And then on the way back, I'm going to be in Louisiana. I don't have those dates yet, but I believe it's going to be Baton Rouge. We're going to be Lafayette. And I think somewhere in Mississippi, which I've never done comedy in Mississippi. It's like one of the few, I think Mississippi, Alaska might be the only 2 states I haven't done comedy in. I think I've done them in all the rest. But so that'll be exciting. Anyways, it's a lot of shit. You've probably fast forwarded through that like it was a commercial. So fair game. I have no guest this week. I had a guest. I had to take Arnie to the vet. And so Arnie, thought he had a issue. I'm looking at him right now. If you're not watching this, I just spent, because I'm recording this on Sunday before I fly out to Florida tomorrow morning, and the vet's not. I'm not going to bore you with what's happening, but I thought he had some kidney or failure, or he's diabetic, or some shit that was going to be crazy. They took blood, did urinalysis, nothing. Nothing. They think it's his food. I switched him to a new food, and they think something's going on with that. But he's actually healthy. So cool. That was money I didn't want to spend, but I guess he's like my child, and I guess you would spend it on your child. It's weird. Everything's digital. You got to fill everything out, and they agree to pay the amount of money. And then he had to stay there for like an hour, and so I wanted to get something to eat while they did everything. And it said, oh, if we have to perform CPR on them, which I guess that's just standard because I don't know why they'd have to perform CPR on them if they're just taking blood. But would you like us to perform CPR or not? You have to say if you don't want to. And then they tell you right there, it's $250 if they perform CPR on them. What the fuck? You're at, how's it $250? It's just CPR. Like you don't need any equipment. You just, and you put your fingers. I've actually watched some videos on it. So you're telling me if you're going to perform, if you're a veterinarian and my dog needed CPR because it was in there for something else in treatment, it's $250 or they're going to let him die? That is some cold-hearted shit. And also messed up. There's another, I think maybe I said this before, I don't know. But years ago when I had to put one of my cats down, like BC, he was a brawler. He lived outside and he would just fight all the time. He couldn't be inside. He was like, anytime you bring him inside, he'd just freak out, piss everywhere. He'd just go bananas. He would just like, and I found him outdoors. He lived outdoors and he was, he lived a good life, but every 6 to 8 months, he'd get in a fight and he got a little abscess, had to get it drained. They'd have to gas him because the vets couldn't even work on him unless he was unconscious. There's a big ass sticker on this thing. Gas. Said something else besides that. And so I must have spent, I spent thousands and thousands of dollars with this cat at the vet. And then he got old. And by the way, I think he got a little senile at the end or something happened. His mental capacity changed because he all of a sudden became super nice. Like he was nice to me, but other people would just attack. And then one day he was just nice. I think he forgot he was mean. I think he had Alzheimer's or whatever cats get and just forgot he was mean. And then it was like weird because he would come up to people like, hey guys, can I get a pet? And everyone's like, you drew blood from me at least 10 times. RIP BC. But anyways, when I went to go put him down, it was really sad. They gave him the injection. He went to sleep. I put him back in. I put him in like the carrier thing to carry him out. And the lady stopped me. She goes, "Oh, yeah, hey, sorry." Whatever it was, $100, $200. I don't remember what it was. And I was like crying. I wasn't crying then, but I had been crying. I looked sad, I'm sure. And I was just like, "Wouldn't you just give that to me for free after all the money? Like, hey, this one's on us, guys, on the way out." But it's just crazy. So shout out to the true, I forget what the name of the emergency vet I went to. I just wanted to make sure he's okay before I left town. And you are, buddy. You had a rough day, and so did I. You had a rough day. You got poked and prodded, and I had a rough day financially. Holy shit. Love ya. All right. Let's start talking about some other stuff. I don't have any segments today. I don't have anything. Just a couple things that are on my mind that I figured I'd talk about. So when you're an addict, and I don't care what stage of addiction you're at. If you are an addict, you have affected other people's lives that you care about. Sometimes you don't care about them, but you've affected other people's lives negatively, for sure. There's impossibility that that's happened. I don't care what you're addicted to. You've done something as simple as like forgot to show up to something, or you, maybe you got super drunk and, just ruined a party, or pissed in somebody's bed, or called somebody a name, or, maybe you have kids and you just weren't around for them, and whatever the case might be. For me, it was always a money thing because of gambling, always money. Man, with my mom, in some ways I reconciled with her before she passed away. In many ways I did. But, when somebody passes away, you always look back and you're like, well, I should have told her this or said this or whatever. And there's like methods to do that. I know I've always been told you can write someone's passed away or not with us anymore. You can like write them a letter and then you've said it to them de facto, or you can speak to them, and I don't think that I do that enough with my mom, and I should. But that's not the point. What I'm bringing up is I have probably borrowed money from everybody that I consider a friend, and in some cases just acquaintances. I am at a point now where this is the thing about addiction. This is what I'm trying to say is even if you are clean or sober or whatever, and you've got 10 days, 30 days, 90 days, 90 months, 5 years, whatever you've got, wherever you're at in your recovery, no matter how little or far you've gone, you're always, for the most part, I think generally further along than everybody else is that's around you. Because they're not in recovery per se, but the destruction you caused and the wake that you created all this destruction affected all these people. Some people are quicker to come back from that than others. Trust might never ever come back. In some cases, you might have destroyed a relationship that's never going to be recoverable, and it's your fault. But still, there's just something in your head when you're an addict and you feel like you're in a good place, that you feel like other people should be where you're at. You've gotten on this train, your recovery train, for lack of a better word, and you're chugging along and you're picking up speed and you're getting your life back together. When you think everybody else is on the train, they're not on that train. Nobody else is on that train with you. Nobody. That's just you solo. They're on other modes of transportations, and some of them might be keeping up with you. Thankfully, some of those people exist in your life. Some people might be heading the other direction, far away from you. They're like, fuck that. I'm not dealing with this person. And some people are, and the majority of people, I think, are going a lot slower because of the damage you did psychologically, mentally, in some cases physically. People, but so it's hard to remember that when you're an addict. It's hard to keep that. You want people to be like I'm losing weight right now. And I've been making a joke on stage because I'm still heavy. I still need to lose about 60, probably 50, 60 pounds, but I've lost 60 pounds already. And if you know me, people are like, holy shit, you look great. But on stage, I still look like a fat piece of shit. And if you haven't listened to this podcast yet, I'm a comedian. I'm self-deprecating. I'm not, you don't have to like write to me and be like, you're fine. Um, so, I got about 6 months left of some of the fat jokes, but I've been slowly weaning out of them, getting rid of them. Anyways, but I want people when they see me to be like, hey, you look great. But then I look in the mirror and then I'm just sometimes like, oh, if you just met me, you'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to tell this guy he looks great. This guy needs to lose weight. He looks unhealthy still, but I feel a lot better. I'm feeling the stuff I'm feeling now is from my age and less of what I'm eating and the weight I'm carrying around. And so I'm getting there, and I doing a whole workout regimen where I'm trying to make sure that once I lose all this weight, I don't just have like flaps of skin. TMI. But my point, getting back to addiction, is, and the reason I brought the weight thing is because you want people, you want that recognition, like, hey, you're doing great, and people give it to you, but you want everybody to be where you're at on that train, and they're not on that train. Nobody's on that train. It's just you. And I bring that up because I called up a friend the other day that I hadn't spoken to in a while, and I have spoken to them many times since I had borrowed money from them, and I had borrowed money from them at one point, said, hey, I'll pay you back in whatever. I lied to them and said a couple weeks. And then I didn't. And I borrowed more money and said, I'm getting money soon and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure I took that money and paid maybe a bill or two and then gambled the rest. Because that's what I would do if I would get a chunk of money. I'd be like, well, I'll pay my phone bill so I can do that. And then I'm going to go win some money and then I'd lose it. Or I'd win money and then I just keep gambling until I lost it. So I called my friend and they picked up and they literally just said, I'm not loaning you money. That's how they answered the phone, which is funny. But I mean, it's funny now when I'm thinking about it. But I got angry immediately. I like cursed at him. I was like, what the I was like, that's rude. And by the way, I've had many conversations with them since I borrowed all this money from them. I think it was like 3 or 4 times that I kept borrowing until I didn't pay them back. And then eventually I did pay them back. But it was a long period of time that I didn't give them their money. And I burned them, I burned that trust with them where I said, I got you, and I didn't have them. And so I called them up and they're like, I'm not lending you money. And I got mad at me. He was like, that's rude. I was like, I think I cursed at him. I was super angry. I was like, that's like the nerve of you kind of thing, And it wasn't a great conversation after that. And then I hung up with him. And I called him back today and they didn't pick up because I wanted to apologize because they have every right to do that. And that was just one incident that was like 4 times that I borrowed money from them clumped together that I didn't pay them back. I borrowed money from another time and didn't pay them back and had some other incidences with them. So I'm surprised they still pick up the phone. They're still friends with me too. And I give them credit for that. And so I don't know if it was something in the tone of my voice or I was, by the way, not calling to ask for money. I was just calling the chat, but maybe there's something in my tone that they recognized and then triggered them and tripped them off that. But now I feel bad and I have to apologize to them because that wasn't like a crazy question for them to ask in regards to a relationship. And that does suck as an addict where whatever it is that people might, be wary of you. Like, they wouldn't leave you alone with a bottle of whiskey in a room or hey, I'm going to take this out. And someone would be like, fuck you. You think I'm going to drink, whatever, money for me or whatever it is. And, it's, I guess it's not like a punishment, but I think it's good to remember that everybody else isn't where you're at. And that can go for anything in life, but especially with addiction, you can't expect other people to be where you're at with addiction, even though you want them to. It feels great when somebody's like proud of you for accomplishing, maybe a goal. Maybe you made 30 days or 90 days, or maybe you're at like 5 years. Maybe you just did one day, or maybe you were in a situation where previously it would just cause you to lose control and you go back to doing whatever you're doing. using or drinking or eating food or whatever it is. And we always want that credit, but and sometimes you get it, but I think that's good to remember is that shouldn't affect you. If that person says that to you and you gave them a reason to ever think that, then that's valid. Because there's people that I've cut out of my life because not because of addiction issues, but just because they're assholes, Like how many times are you going to hang out with a person and you're like, you're boring or you're an asshole? Or like, I just don't want to deal with you. So I don't really need to update you. I'm going to apologize to them when they call back or when I talk to them eventually, but I feel bad. Moving on from that, I went to a pawn shop the other day. I was interested in buying a guitar. Hot tip, if you're not familiar with pawn shops, because I am very familiar with pawn shops. There are pawn shops within the LA area and Miami area where I know, not only do I know all the employees, I know them very well. I know a lot of information about their families and stuff. There's a pawn shop here in LA. It's called Hollywood Pawn Shop. And it's over in Glendale. And man, I don't know how many times I've been there. I have am I wearing it? No, I'm wearing a silver necklace. I have a couple different necklaces my grandfather wore. This one's a silver one he wore like as a tail gunner in World War II, and it was a good luck charm. It's a St. Christopher. I don't think he's a saint anymore, but he was supposed to protect you when you travel. I think he got desainted because one of his miracles wasn't a miracle. I'm like, it's religion. It was not real. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. My people might be religious that are listening to this, but to me, it isn't. To me, it was just more like a good luck charm kind of thing, and that's the way my grandfather wore it. It has his initials in the back, and it's really cool. And he wore a gold one his whole life that I knew him when he was older. It's like a 16 karat gold with a gold St. Christopher on it with his initials on the back, and then there was a little dime from like the 20s or 30s that was wrapped around with gold and like held on there. And that was the first. It was a dime he earned, his first money he ever earned on his paper route. He kept that dime, which I imagine back in 1930s or whatever the fuck it was. I don't know what a dime would be worth. $10, who knows? And it would clank together, so that the one coin and the dime would just clank together, clink, clink. And so you'd hear them. You had this long hallway where him and my grandmother lived, and it was like glass on one side, windows, and terrazzo floor. Which, if you're not familiar with that, it's like a smooth concrete floor that they put like marble chips into, smooth it out. So it was kind of echoey, and you could hear him coming down the hall. So everybody knew that my grandfather, I called him Pockham, was like coming down. You could hear him. And when he passed away, literally when he passed away, I mean, maybe an hour or two after, my grandmother handed me the chain and said, you should have this because I've been wearing the other one, the silver one, which I wear more than the gold one. Gold's not my thing, but I do like wearing it. If I go to visit my aunt in Texas, I'll be wearing it because she likes to hear it. It reminds her of her dad, which I think is really cool. And I look exactly like my grandfather. I mean, exactly. The wedding videos that I've watched where he's marrying my grandmother, it looks like I'm marrying my grandmother and puffing heaters like in a tuxedo. But that necklace, how fucked up it is. Like such a treasured item. That's why I wanted to give you that whole backstory. I have pawned that necklace. And if you don't, I don't know if maybe people don't know what pawning is. Yeah, you know what a pawn store is because Pawn Stars is on. If you haven't seen that show with all those people in Vegas, but a pawn shop, you can do one of two things. I think you can trade too, but I don't know who goes and trade. But you can sell. You can go in there and just say, "Hey, I got a gold necklace. I got diamond earrings. I've got a guitar. I've got power tools." These are the things pawn shops will buy, by the way. Just a tip. Jewelry, for sure. Certain watches like Rolexes, Philippe Petites, or however you say that, like really expensive watches, they're all on over that. They'll buy that. Power tools, big time, they'll buy that. Video game consoles, maybe some other electronics like laptops, iPads, things like that. Cameras, SLR cameras, and musical instruments. Those are your big items. Other shit they won't necessarily buy or pawn. So you can go in, you can sell those things. And let's say you're going to go in with everyone's got a laptop. So let's say you're going with your new MacBook Pro and you bought it for like $1,500 or whatever, and it's brand new and you're like, man, I need some cash. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to sell it. Oh, by the way, let me go back. You can also pawn, and pawn is like getting a loan. So you bring in any of those items that I just mentioned, and there's other items too, but those are the main items. And they will give you a loan, and you have, I think it's usually 90 to 120 days to pay it back. And each state has interest rates set, but it's not a great interest rate for you. So let's say you borrow $500, you're gonna have to pay back 620. Not great. But people that are in there are desperate. You know, they're not always addicts. They're not necessarily. There's a lot of addicts in there. Trust me. There's a lot of druggies, alcoholics, gamblers, like all that shit for sure. But there's also people that might have lost their job and they need to like have some source of income, so they might pawn something or sell it, or people that just, you know, it's fucking hard. It's hard out there. So there's all sorts of people that are coming in there, and every pawn shop you go to, just to give you an idea, because there's a lot of sketchy ass people in there. Usually a double barrier gate. And maybe everyone's been to a pawn shop, so if I'm over explaining this, I'm sorry. But if you haven't, if you don't know what's going on there, this is what's going on. So, and you don't get good money. Like I was gonna say, if you have a laptop for $1,500, you can pawn or sell that for that. Maybe that's worth it in the real world. They'll probably give you $500 for it, maybe 400, because they usually only gonna give you 50% of what they can sell it for, and if it's used, you know. So that gold necklace, I've probably pawned in. I've talked about it in another episode. I pawned it in Singapore one time when I had like, and if I wouldn't have won money in the casino, I wouldn't have been able to get it back. And the fucking necklace would have been in Singapore. When am I going to get that back? Never. I pawned it at this Hollywood pawn shop conservatively 20 times, maybe more. Pawned a couple other pawn shops in the LA area, a couple in Miami and stuff. And I don't know. It's sad when you think about it. Like, it's just something that has that much sentimental value to me and means that much. And I'm just sitting like in a drawer somewhere in a vault all these times. I don't have access to it. I could lose it if I don't pay them back. Probably. I mean, there's times when I showed up the last day when the loan was going to quote unquote mature, and they'll gladly just melt that shit down and make their money. So I have a crazy relationship with pawn shops. So the Hollywood pawn shops over in Glendale, I highly recommend it. They're as pawn shops go, they're great people. It's a family business. There's a dad and a couple of his sons, and one of the sons has a computer shop right next door. And I brought, because I got to know him so well, I'd bring my laptops there all the time, and he'd juice me up with different programs I needed and fix some ailments and stuff on my laptop. So that was always great. And they occasionally will come out to shows of mine. That's how many times I've been to this fucking pawn shop. And here's a really sad thing. So when I first went in there, the first time I ever went in there, I'd already done Conan. And I walk in, and Conan O'Brien, they had just have a TV with Conan O'Brien on the TV. And apparently I remember that there was an episode, if you weren't familiar with Conan, where he goes to a pawn shop and he wants to sell certain items. There's like a giant bobblehead of him that remained on set until he retired. I don't even know where it is, but it's probably, I don't know, 15 feet tall. It's massive. He had that in an alley, and he brought him out that was like the final button of the piece. He brought him out like, how much would you give me for this? And there was a guitar hanging in there. The first time I saw it, an acoustic guitar, and it said, hopefully this makes it worth more money or something like that, signed Conan. And there's a whole bit he did in the pawn shop. It was with these guys, and they were playing it on loop because they were so excited that Conan was in this pawn shop. And I'd already done Conan. I'm in there pawning this necklace, among other things. I pawned other things in there too. And then I would make some money. I'd either earn some money or I'd gamble and win some money, and I would come back there. And I don't know what they thought I was doing or not doing, but I mean, they just in the interest rates alone, they made a lot of money off me. But they were they're very lenient with me too, in some ways. But so that was embarrassing to because I even said, I was like, this is the pawn shop where Conan was at? And they're like, yeah. And I was just like, I wanted to tell them, like, I had been on Conan. Here I am. And here, gambling. I need some gambling money. I need some money to do some shit. So my point is, here's here's the upside of pawn shops is if you need any of these things, they are available in there and you can wheel and deal with them. You need like a new power drill or like a reciprocating saw or any sorts of power tools. There, guarantee you, any pawn shop, decent pawn shop you walk into, they're going to have some good tools. And you need a laptop. You want to look for some jewelry. Rolex, you're going to have some good deals on that. Guitars, that's why I was going in there. Musical instruments. So they always have a price in there. And I'll just give you this tip too is you can negotiate with them because that price they put up there is for suckers. If you agree to that price, that's probably way high. And then in some cases, it might not be high, but they might have had that particular item there. And it could have been there for one of two reasons. They bought it because somebody sold it or somebody defaulted on their loan. So it might be sitting there for a while and they're just like, we need to get this thing out of there and you can get some deals. So I went into a couple of the pawn shops, including Hollywood Pawn Shop where I was talking about, because one of the sons collects like Stratocasters, Fender Stratocasters and stuff. Because I was thinking of getting an electric guitar again and playing guitar. I've always gone back and forth with guitar. And so I was in there and man, it came flooding back, like being at a pawn shop. It made me, it gave me a similar feeling of when I'm in casinos. If I'm working a casino, I'm with friends in a casino and I see people gambling. A lot of times people think, man, is it tough working in a casino or being in a casino? It honestly is, I mean, all things being equal, I'd rather not be in one, but if I am in one, I always look for the people that I always try to look for the people that I know are in the throes of some bullshit, that have some issues or problems, and just look at and I've talked about this before, the way that their expressions are, their moods and whatever. And that like snaps me right into, it's like being in a meeting or something like that, and just being like, well, I don't want to be like that. That's how I look at that. And that's how I felt in the pawn shop when I was there. I was looking at guitars and there's just one that I might go back and get, but man, it was almost like therapeutic for me being in there and not pawning something and seeing other people come in there desperate, and just hearing them be like, this isn't real gold or this isn't it. We don't take that, etc. Sneakers, that's another thing. Like not just some bullshit slip on Skechers, but like, Jordans and stuff like that. Obviously you can go that. So it's, I think that is interesting, the feelings that I had in there, because, and everybody's different. Sometimes people will get, I hate to keep using the word triggered, but, for lack of a better word, but sometimes people wouldn't want to do that because they'd be like, it'd be this visceral reaction to that. To me, it was like, seeing those people in there, and I don't know what their deals were, but there was at least two people I saw in there that, to me, had exhibit all the signs of not something economically going wrong in their life because out of their control, but like shit in their control. And, and I might be wrong, but I hope I am, but they just felt like they were addicts. And so that was kind of beneficial for me, to be in there and stuff. I was with, a couple weeks ago, I did some shows at Pachanga Casino and some other Agua Caliente Casino. Agua Caliente is like in Palm Springs or Coachella or something like that. And Pachanga is like near San Diego. I did with Jimmy O Yang, and I'm actually going to be at casinos with him next week. I'm going to be in Niagara Falls at some casino and at Oceans Resort in Atlantic City. And anyways, after the Pachanga one, there was other friends of ours that came out to the show, and they all wanted to go gambling. And I always appreciate this. People are always like, is it cool? Like, do you mind if we go gambling? I'm like, I'll go with you guys. Like, I'll just, I'll have a chat. There was a couple people that didn't gamble. So we kind of just like laid back while people are playing like blackjack or slots or whatever, and craps and stuff like that. And so I'm perfectly capable of being in a casino. I was working there. I was doing a show. I'm not going to coop up in my room. I have friends that I know that are alcoholics and they bartend. I have friends that are gambling addicts and they're card dealers and stuff like that. I always say it all the time. It's, proximity is of course an issue to things, but that's not the deciding factor for an addict. I can always get close to gambling if I want to. It's not like if I'm at home, I can't drive to a casino. There's one that's 15 minutes from there, literally 15 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. Anyways, I bring that up because I've been doing some new gambling jokes on stage, and some guy at the show, one of this, I sometimes I'm like, hey, are there any gambling addicts? I always like just to throw that out there and just have some fun with it. And some guy goes, no, I'm not a gambling addict. I'm good at gambling. I was like, what does that mean? And he goes, yeah, I guess you're just not good at it. That's what he said, which I know he was trying to be funny because in this day and age of people putting crowd work online, people think they can heckle and yell shit out. And it's great. But I just thought that was funny. I think there's a joke in there because I was like, because I said something to him. I was like, you don't think I'm good at gambling? Like I've gambled like the vast majority of my life and gambled more money than this kid could ever have thought about gambling. You don't think I'm good? Like I don't know how to play the things. It's like telling an alcoholic they're not good at drinking. Like alcoholics will drink you under the table. They're good at drinking. They're just not good at controlling how much you drink. But as far as like, ask them about a liquor. They'll probably be able to tell you where it's made, the proof, what it tastes like, all that shit. I mean, my point is, there's something funny in there, but my friends that I was out there with, they were a couple of them when I was watching them gamble. I told them, I was like, you're not doing that correctly. Whatever it was that they were playing, whatever it was, some table games, card games, even slots and stuff. And they're like, one of them said that to me. They're like, should we be taking advice from you? I was like, you should definitely be taking advice from me. When you're gambling, I tried to explain to them. I said, it's not about that I can't win. I've won tons and tons of money. It's like you don't stop, The same thing like with the alcoholics. It's not about that you that you don't know how to drink people under the table. You just don't stop. As long as I had that money, it's just the fuel to keep going. And then one of my friends was like, oh yeah, you do know what you're talking about. Yeah, unfortunately I do. And he said, you know what you should do? He said, you should be like a guide, like a concierge for casinos where you take them around. This is how you play this game and this is what you do. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if that'd be good for my recovery. Cut to next podcast. I was like, hey, if you know anybody that needs a guide in Las Vegas. But yeah, and just so you know, if there's anybody listening that's a gambling addict, what I do, if you're going to be in situations like I'm working at the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas. I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I'm there for a whole week. I stay in the casino. I do 2 shows a night. But I do a lot of things to prevent myself from gambling. Number one is I have no access to cash. I make sure I don't have access to cash. If you don't have cash, you can't gamble at a casino. That is, we've talked a lot on this podcast about the sports gambling on your phone. If you haven't listened to that episode with Jonathan D. Cohen, we go into that in depth. And by the way, if this is one of your first podcasts, we don't even talk about gambling that much on here. Most of my guests are alcoholics, drug addicts. Talked about cigarettes one time. I have an episode coming up. I don't even know how to pronounce the thing correctly, so I'm not going to say it. But it's like a new drug that people are getting highly addicted to, and I have a guest. I believe it's the next episode. So that'll be interesting. I don't even want to say the name of it. You'll hear it in the next episode because if I mispronounce it, sounds like I haven't done the research, and I haven't yet. I'm going to look up some stuff, read some articles for having one. But yeah. So getting back to gambling, I was just wanted to throw that out there if people are tuning out because I know it's not like for whatever reason on YouTube, my subscribership on the new page went up. So I hope there's a lot of new listeners watching, and then also my audio did too. So maybe people are recommending the podcast, and for that I'm grateful. But if you are a gambler, this goes the same for alcohol, drugs, whatever, is you don't want to have access to that because the gambling, the money, the cash is the vodka, the cash is the opiates, the cash is the cocaine. That's in gambling. That's how you get to the point to release the dopamine, to be in the action, to have the adrenaline going. So I just make sure I don't have access to cash. And in doing so, I have the shittiest fucking bank. They're fine, the banks, but I don't want any brick and mortar banks because I've gone to Vegas in the past and I'm like, I'm going to leave all my cards at home. And I'm like, oh, well, I can just drive to Wells Fargo and just take, an IRA or IRA, whatever the fuck they are. IRA. That's how bad I am with money. Irish Republican Army. An IRA and just cash it out and take the penalty and gamble that away, which I've done. So I decided to have banks that like SoFi. There's SoFi Stadium is here in LA. There's no brick and mortar for them. You can't go to a bank and get the cash out. I can go to an ATM, but I leave the card. I don't have the card with me when I'm staying in casinos. I only have a few, like 2 credit cards they have enough balance on them so I can check into hotels and put the deposit down because the hotels are comped, and I can buy food and stuff like that during the week. So I do that, number one. I have no access to cash. And then I tell as many people as possible. And that might not be possible for you because some people are not in a position where they can share that information with people. But I talk about it on stage. I tell all the comics I'm working with that week, all my friends, so everybody knows. Now, Jamie Wolf, who was on last episode, it's funny because when we met for the first time, it was in Vegas and we were doing the Comedy Cellar together and we were eating dinner one night and we had this discussion because he says, isn't it difficult for you to be here? And I said, if I wasn't working in a casino, I wouldn't be hanging out in there, but I work a lot in casinos. So, I said all these things, these roadblocks that I'm doing to prevent myself from gambling. Having people available on my phone to talk to is another one. Anytime you're feeling in any way that you might be using or, drinking or gambling or whatever, make sure you have those phone numbers ready, the people that you can call to rely on. And sometimes people can't pick up their phone. So make sure you got the backup and another backup. You should have like 3 to 4 people that you can call at any given moment. Make friends with some people on the other side of the world. Because if it's like 2 a.m, somebody in Australia is up. So, what was I? Oh, and so Jamie said, and I said, when I tell you, and I tell my friends or my new friends, and I said, but to be fair, like, I asked him, I was like, what would you do if you saw me gambling? I was sitting at a table playing cards, or I was sitting on a slot machine. Would you stop me? And he was like, it's an interesting question. And I don't remember what the answer was, but you can't really stop a person. But it's about keeping yourself accountable. That's the thing, is you got to keep yourself accountable, because if you're single like me, you definitely have to do that. Even if you're married, you have a significant other you live with your family members, you still have to be accountable because it's on you. You're the person that is going to make that decision ultimately on whether you're going to do something or not do something. And you can do whatever it is that works for you. You can go to meetings, you can meditate, you can take medication, whatever works for you to stop you from using whatever your addiction is or doing the activity that your addiction is. Do that. But in the end, that's still your decision in the end to make that, to do it or not. And obviously the more roadblocks you put up, the better. But I don't know. So if anyone ever sees me as sitting at a slot machine, you can tackle me if you want, but I don't know if that's the move. Because I probably won't, if I don't know you, we're just fighting all of a sudden. Probably get kicked out of the casino. But I remember seeing somebody. I remember when regardless of all that, when I was going in and out of gambling a lot, a couple of the casinos here, Commerce Casino, I've seen other comedians before, and it's always like, hey, and just like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm fucked up. And it was embarrassing, but nobody stopped me. So be accountable. You have to be accountable for yourself. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about, is accountability. Such a big thing, because we're always quick to blame other people, or blame less so other people than situations. Like, well, if it wasn't for this and that and this didn't happen, then I wouldn't have done X, Y, Z. And it's like, that's bullshit. You did it because you made that decision to do it. Can you set yourself up for success? Absolutely. But it's a combination of all those factors. Just like I was talking about losing weight. Like, I'm doing so many different things. Like, I'm watching what I eat, the types of things I'm eating, but also the calories. But then I also have to do fucking burpees and planks and all this bullshit I don't want to do. And I'm hiking and walking. I started doing yoga, which I'm not good at. Yoga is fucking hard. Yoga might be the thing that looks the easiest. That's the hardest in the world. You're just like, it's really hard. You all right, buddy? And so it's a combination of all those things I'm saying. And then the other thing I just want to hammer home again from the beginning is just be patient with people. Be patient with yourself, but also be patient with other people that you've damaged and hurt and stuff. Because I feel really bad. I feel really bad about that incident. And then it also caused me to reflect on other people that I had gotten into arguments with recently about stuff that wasn't related to money, but I think that still, if I look back at them, stem from my addiction, like something that is in their head that, without getting into the details, like just, I think there's a couple other arguments I got into that, if I'm really being honest about it, is because of my addiction in the past and how it affected them. So I think it's a good thing to practice anyways, being like tolerant and patient and stuff. Even if you think that's rude what they said or you don't agree with it, then, you know, be patient, be tolerant. Let me put on my reading glasses. And I've been rambling for 46 minutes. I don't even know if this episode is good. I don't know what. I have been kind of going in and out of shit, but I just want to tell everybody that I appreciate you. If you're new to the podcast, and everybody that's been with me since the beginning, I appreciate you all as well. And I hope to see you at a show soon, or hope to see your comments or anything like that. And I hope that you keep listening or watching. And yeah, dot. A lot of people have been texting me. Nothing to do with this. But yeah, well, how do I always close out the show? I almost forgot. If you're feeling like you're going to hurt yourself, suicide and crisis hotlines in the US are 988, in Canada 988. In the United Kingdom, it's, I don't know, 0800-689-5652. That number doesn't even make sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to you guys there. Australia 131114, Finland 0925250111. I'm not going to read Germany's because it's 55 digits long. Fuck you, Germany. Go to the Wikipedia page, list of suicide and crisis lines. That has a list of crisis helplines by country. I'm not saying you listen to this podcast to the end to get to that number, but if this is something that you've ever thought about, ever in your life, then go to that Wikipedia page now, look up your country, find the number if I didn't mention it, and put it in your phone. Then it's there. Then you don't have to look it up. Anyways, I'll be back next week. And I was going to attempt to say this word of this drug, but I'm not. We'll be talking about it next week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I will talk to you soon. Love y'all.